You ever catch yourself saying, man, I used to be in shape? You think back to those PT days, pushing through the pain with your squad beside you, and now your back's stiff, your knees are shot, your motivation feels miles away. The gym's full of folks who forget the gym. You don't want to be around those folks sometimes, and working out solo just doesn't seem to be the same. But what if you could train again? Sometimes uh, getting back around other vets, programs built for you, for your body, for your injuries. That's what Warrior Strong is doing. Rob Bracero, he joins us today to talk about how their veteran-led wellness programs are helping guys like us get back in shape physically and mentally through strength training, yoga, breath work, and real community. And whether you're looking to stop making excuses, find your tribe, or just feel like yourself again, this episode's got something for you. Before we dive in, though, make sure you're subscribed to the email newsletter at driveonpodcast.com/subscribe. You'll get my 5 favorite episodes sent straight to your inbox. No fluff, just the best insights to help you drive on. I also want to take a moment to raise awareness for something deeply important to our community, the Global War on Terrorism Memorial Foundation. This organization is working to build a permanent national memorial in Washington, D.C., to honor the service members, families, and civilians impacted by the global war on terrorism. This memorial serves as both a tribute to those who served and a way to ensure their sacrifices are recognized and remembered for generations to come. If you want to learn more or find out how you can support the mission, visit gwatmemorialfoundation.org. Now let's get into it. Rob, welcome to the show. Really glad to have you here, and I've been looking forward to this conversation. Especially to discuss your work with Warrior Strong and the things that you guys are doing. But let's first off just welcome to the show.
Yeah, no, I certainly appreciate the opportunity. Everything that you do with the Drive On podcast and getting the word out and just helping uplift people. That's awesome, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and we had Tom Tice on a little while ago talking about the organization and the things that you guys do. Tell us a little bit about your involvement with the organization, with Warrior Strong and the mission and kind of how you got all involved.
Sure. So, I know Tom's pretty modest with himself, right? But he kind of really came up with this idea himself, and I don't know. I'd imagine he doesn't share this story because he doesn't share it often. But this all kind of stirred from some of the challenges that were floating around social media. For veteran suicide, and veteran PTSD awareness and stuff like that. And I'm not down shooting any of that stuff, but Tom kind of took it to heart and he just thought that there was something more than he could do. And he kind of started developing this idea. The gears started turning in his head, and he kind of started jotting things down on paper. And he really started putting it together on a business plan. And he brought me in towards the end of the business planning phase, and I kind of helped fine tune that, and we hit the ground running from there. It's been a hell of a journey, so it's exciting.
Yeah, I mean, uh, anytime you have an idea to help people and you kind of just get that vision that to go out and do something, it kind of lights a little fire under you. And when you start seeing the fruits of your labor coming through and you're actually helping people, an idea is great and everything, but once when you see that there's actual real people who are actually being helped by the work that you're doing, God, it makes it feel so much better than just that planning phase, right? The planning phase that's sometimes the easy part, but then when you go and implement it and then
Oh
you,
yeah.
you, you try to get it,
Things
you
are
try to
things
get
are
it.
definitely a lot different, right? Like we're
Yeah.
grassroots organization, and our mission is really, without just giving a mission statement, right? It's really there to kind of provide an opportunity to for veterans, people that have been in the service that kind of stepped up to help uplift them, help bring some things back into their lives that they've really been missing out, and just help them get out of any funk or any ruts that they're in, and just generally make their lives a little bit better through fitness and wellness and camaraderie, and yeah, it's great. It really is good. And for me being a veteran too, right, that gives me a sense of purpose back, and it's helped me out as an individual as well as the other veterans that have been taking part of our program. So it's awesome.
Yeah, I've talked to several veterans who got out of the military and ended up in some sort of organization like yours that is out there to support veterans. And they had that same kind of mindset where they felt like, now I have that sense of purpose again.
Yeah.
You know, did you feel like you kind of lost that sense of purpose after getting out? Was that kind of your experience,
Oh,
or what was your experience getting out?
Absolutely, absolutely. So, I did, just a short stint. I know some people have done a lot longer than I've done, but I did 4 years in the Marine Corps, and I
Okay.
served over in the infantry over in Fallujah and Ramadi, and it was back in 2004, 2008. So it was a little bit of a hectic time, and I got out. I had my issues like many other veterans, and I did. I felt like a sense of detachment, right?
Yeah.
Um, I didn't have a purpose anymore. When I was in the Marine Corps, I had a purpose. I knew what my purpose was, and I worked to execute on that purpose every single day. Um, and then you get out, and things are just different. You have to you have to really find that sense of purpose again. It doesn't usually just drop in your lap. So for me,
Hmm.
it took a while. It took a while, and I had some things turning in my head to try and find that sense of purpose. And then Tom came along, like I said, with his idea, and he kind of brought me back in, and ever since then, I've had that sense of purpose back. And people find purpose in different ways and stuff like that. But if I had to give a piece of advice, it's don't wait for it to fall in your lap. Just kind of go and seek it out.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely seek out opportunities for sure. I agree with that. And you never know where that thing might come from. Like in your case, came from Tom, right? And cool. That's great. But he may have had an idea for something different, and it might not have jive with you. And maybe he wanted to help some other group of people and not necessarily veterans. And while that's a noble cause, and it's certainly nothing wrong with that, may not have been for you. And so
Sure.
you could have said, okay, well, that's not for me, but there's something else for me, and you try that next thing. And so to that point, find that thing that's for you, and you'll feel a hell of a lot better than if you're just like taking whatever crap comes your way.
Yeah, I mean, taking it day by day, it's that's one approach, right? But
Yeah,
you really have to find something to cling on,
right.
something that you're really passionate about, something that energizes you.
That's right. Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I know we on the episode with Tom, we talked a little bit about the programs, services, things like that Warrior Strong has to offer. But for the folks who maybe didn't catch that episode, or are curious to learn more maybe about Warrior Strong, tell us about the programs and services. All the stuff that goes into Warrior Strong and what people can expect from it.
Sure. So again, we're really just trying to help out with fitness and wellness and bringing camaraderie and community, right? Community is a big one back into veterans' lives. When you get out and stuff like that too, you kind of have a detached community. You had a group that you can rely on, and then you come out and you don't necessarily have that. So everything that we gear from a health and fitness aspect also really integrates community and bringing that camaraderie as well back into the veterans' lives. And we offer programs like we have strength training, we have body weight training, we have like a hybrid body weight and actual weight training. And those are some of the newer classes that we've brought on. Yoga is kind of like a staple in our organization. When Tom first told me about it, and I was like, that's great because I know there's a lot of benefits, but I had never done yoga before. I'm going to be honest with you.
Right.
But I tried it out, and it's awesome. I have back issues from the military, and I know you had some guests on not too long ago that were talking about back issues and stuff like that. So the yoga has really helped me out.
Yeah.
We have some other programs too. We have breath work. We have meditation, which is great. The breath work class is probably one of my favorites. In the last year, last year and a half, we started an aquatics therapy class, and that's kind of like more localized to our area now. And we're working on ways of trying to get it out to some other populations, but We offer that. And this last year, we really started an adaptive fitness class, and we have some awesome instructors. Kenny is our adaptive fitness guy. He's like, you know, the guru. He's the guy that we lean on for all the adaptive fitness stuff. He's super motivated. He's a Marine guy as well, but he does a heck of a job. So we have that, and then we also offer a veterans like certification class. So what happens is if a veteran comes to us and maybe they're looking to start a business in fitness, or they just want to become an instructor somewhere else, they can come to us. And there's a small vetting process, but we the veteran to go out and get certified in a health, a wellness, or a fitness class, and they get that certification. And they can bring it however they want it. They can instruct somewhere else, or they can start their own business. And we kind of use that to, one, have them give back to the veteran community, but two, it helps them out, with their own livelihood and earning some extra cash and stuff like that as well. So financially, it also helps out.
Yeah, that's awesome too, because a lot of times folks will get out of the military and they want to do something like that. They want to, start a business, coaching or training, those types of things. And, maybe sometimes the pathway to get there isn't super clear. And so if you have someone who's already walked that path and can say, hey, this is kind of what you need to do, and we can get you certified and, help you set up that business and stuff like that. I think that's an amazing part of the program too. But I think that also leads to, some of the other issues that veterans end up having is sometimes they face that like isolation or just feeling disconnected from the
Yeah.
world after getting out of the military. Because they, you have your group of folks that you were close with when you're in the military. And then you get out and it's like you against the world. And, those people are maybe still in the military and they're off doing their thing. And you got to go figure out your thing, and kind of feels like you're all alone and you're kind of isolated, right? And if you have, that path to starting a business, well, now you're going to get clients and employees, and now you have people. You have your own, built-in group of people that can kind of help mitigate some of that isolation feeling, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you bring up the isolation as a veteran. I'll take it from two ways, right? So when you're in the military, there's always somebody telling you what to do, when to do it, how to do it, where to do it, for the most part. Obviously, you have some leeway operationally, but there's always somebody that's telling you what to do and when to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And when you get out, you don't have that anymore. And not to say that it affects all veterans, but it certainly affects a large population of veterans. They come out and they just don't know what the next steps are, how to figure out the next steps, and there's that disconnection again. So having some people that have been through it and kind of helping guide them back onto that path, that certainly helps out. And then you have the isolation that you mentioned, and
Mm-hmm.
this is not just a veteran issue, right? I think with the way
Yeah.
things have been going, with social media and with people kind of, everything that happened with COVID, people have kind of isolated themselves, and a lot of people have found themselves in a rut where, they've lost that community that they had before. And then obviously veterans, they have issues with that from their time in service as well, and it kind of
Mm-hmm.
compounds. So again, when we have these classes, we always make sure that there's that sense of camaraderie that we're bringing back, so people can establish relationships in our classes, and then they can lean on our organization, of course, but they can also use those relationships that they just built with other veterans and lean on each other too. So it's definitely a big help. And communities everything. That's
Yeah.
human beings are a community based organism. We most of us really need community.
Yeah. As much as we may say we don't need it, we do. We can be
Absolutely.
stubborn sometimes too, and really think that no, that's not for me. I'd rather just have a cabin in the woods and be by myself, and is completely isolated, maybe with a dog or something like that. But
Sure.
you know, maybe that's good for a little while, a week, to get away and unplug and just kind of have a digital detox or something like that, but eventually you're going to need to get back into, some sort of society where you're with people, and not just, transactional relationships like, the cashier at the grocery store, but like real relationships where you actually have someone to talk to, and you can rely on them, they can rely on you, and you can help each other out, even just having a phone call just to catch up and see how each other's doing, that type of
Yeah,
thing.
absolutely. It definitely, that sense of community and having that person to talk to definitely helps people out in life. It lightens their load and stuff like that, and helps
Yeah,
them de-stress. Which, I mean, there's lots of stressors out in life. You know, you need those people. You need that community.
exactly. Yeah. And it's just amazing to me that how many veterans that I've talked to through this show and in other places have had that pretty much same experience. And so for the listeners who are out there, they're saying, "Yeah, this sounds like me." Well, guess what? You're not alone. You're not the only
Oh,
one who felt
definitely
felt
not.
that way. You know.
Definitely not alone. There's lots of people out there, right? And we see this. Like I said, it's not just the veteran community.
Yeah,
It's everybody. You
that's
know,
right.
there's nothing wrong with admitting it. There's nothing wrong with wanting a cabin in the woods. You know, I've said that so many times myself. But you know, in reality, it's all about the community.
And if we all were to go get a cabin in the woods, it would be a very crowded place because if everyone who
Yes, it
said that
would.
they wanted one went out and actually did it, eventually we'd be like, "No way, man! I don't want to be here. There's too many people here."
That's right. That's right.
So with Warrior Strong, talking about the isolation and being disconnected, community is a big deal. How does the program work? So someone comes and signs up and is in one or more of the programs. How does that all work, and how is their community kind of tied into all that?
Sure. Like we started off, you know, this is back before COVID had happened, and you know, our plans had changed because we had no intentions of ever going virtual, and we had a small studio that we had set up, and we also had used community partners fitness studios, and they would pretty much donate their off time, and we'd set up classes all around and have in-person classes, and it was great, you know, because
Hmm.
obviously when you're in person, you could really establish that sense of community. And we actually had a veteran reach out to Tom, and he was all the way out in California, and he wanted to take some of our classes, but they were all in person. So, you know, basically, Tom had started working with this guy through the phone, but he suggested one day, hey, can you just put the phone up and video and put the video on, and I'll just take the class, you know, via Zoom or whatever, FaceTime, whatever the app was. And that's kind of where the virtual class kicked off. And at first, we were a little skeptical because we didn't think we'd be able to establish that sense of camaraderie and community, but we were wrong. We've definitely been able to establish that. We kind of allow for time. We typically allow people to check in a little bit early. We're working towards that, you know, so people have some time before and after to have their conversations and chat, and then we kick the class off and everybody relaxes or you know works out depending on the class, and then there's typically some time afterwards for some discussion and then for some typical veteran banter back and forth and all the good stuff. You know, our classes are definitely veteran classes. They're definitely veteran friendly classes, and
That's awesome.
that's the way we like it.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that I've noticed through doing this show is that a lot of times I'll have a guest on the show. Actually, most times I'll have a guest on the show who the very first time that I'm physically speaking with them, other than back and forth emails, working out the schedule to get you on the show or whatever. The very first time I'm speaking to them is when we start recording the interview, or just a few minutes before, and I don't know the person, that well. I mean, I can read up on them and kind of figure out who that person is a little bit, but it's not like we're best friends or anything like that, that we go back all, years ago and anything like that. But by the end of the conversation, we're having just a normal conversation the way, anybody who's known each other for years might be having, and, kind of cracking jokes at each other and things like that sometimes. So it's amazing how easily you can fit right back in with a group of veterans. And almost like you just never skip the beat, and you're right back into the banter and just joking around with each other and everything. And it's a good time. And I think, people start to miss that. And that's one of those things that you can easily get back with just getting involved with a group of other veterans. And it could even be virtually, like you were talking about. It doesn't have to necessarily be an in-person thing, although, it could be. But that's it's a great thing too, because if you're one of those types of people who you can only handle so much social interaction, there's a cutoff time too. And
Absolutely.
I can always just log out and I'm done. And it's not like you're being rude and just storming out of the place and just walking away from people like you might be in person. You just close the thing, say your goodbye, and you're done. And you don't have to get back involved in that. And so it's, I think, a nice way to kind of ease yourself back into those types of environments.
Yeah, it definitely is. Veterans are certainly a distinct and unique breed of people, right? Like we get out and we don't really seek out other veterans. We don't,
Yeah,
a lot of times we don't really look for a group. You get that isolation going, right? And,
yeah,
you see somebody running by all the time and you may wave or say hi, or you may not, right? But then all of a sudden, like, they notice that you're wearing a piece of Army gear or Marine Corps gear or whatever, and then all of a sudden they stop and have a conversation. You find out that you're both veterans, and like you said, yeah, it's like you've never met the person before, but you have that brother sisterhood vibe
yeah,
that we like instinctively have, and it's kind of awesome to really witness. I don't know too many other groups of people that really have what we have,
right,
so it's pretty awesome. And, like that guy from California, Earl, awesome guy. He's the reason why we have a virtual program and it works. And we have people from 19 or 20 different states now attending our classes virtually. And we had somebody from Guam actually taking some of our classes as well. So it's pretty exciting to see that something that we never even planned of is working, and we could still have that sense of community and camaraderie
right.
through virtual methods. So it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and stretching all the way out to Guam and throughout several different states, when you have people like that, and then eventually someone might be traveling somewhere, maybe it's for work or a vacation or something like that, and who knows, maybe you meet up with some of these people, and then you have that in-person connection as well. I know some of the guests that I've had on this show, I've I've met them just a few months ago at a conference, and a lot of the people that I had on the show were at the conference, and but that was the very first time I met a lot of them in person, and it was just a kind of a cool experience to be there, and you already have a group of people built in that you can go and network with and interact with, and it's not like you're speaking to them for the very first time, so that's kind of cool too. So for the folks who might have physical injuries, I know you talked about some of the adaptive programs. Tell us about some of those programs and how that might work for someone who might have some physical limitations as far as the types of activities that they're able to participate in.
Sure. So all of our programs, we kind of let everybody know, like, yourself, your body, your capabilities. If something feels uncomfortable, don't do it. Let us know. And there's modifications that our instructors make. Our instructors are great. Our yoga instructor, he's a combat vet, and he teaches a lot of the other classes as well. And he's always really good with that. Same thing with our breath work and meditation. You know, you wouldn't think that breath work and meditation would need to make adjustments like that, but sometimes people don't feel comfortable or can't take as deep of a breath. So we always let everybody know your limitations, and it's okay. You can always modify it this way. For our adaptive training, for people with more serious injuries and stuff like that, um, our instructor Kenny, he's paralyzed, so he teaches all these different classes. He's paralyzed from, I believe, the chest or waist down, and he teaches all these different classes, and there's different modifications, and he does this program with our instructor Chris, and they make all these modifications, and they kind of go over different things that you could do for different aspects. And when you're taking these live classes, you can always you can always speak up, right? Like I said, we are a veteran. Our classes are very veteran friendly. Like, you just speak up, and then we'll make modifications for you. And same thing with yoga. We have people that have physical limitations. We also have some older veterans and stuff like that. A lot of veterans with back issues and stuff. So we have regular yoga, we have chair yoga, and there's all sorts of different ways that you can modify it. So we certainly let everybody know that they know their body best, and just to speak up, and we'll just show them a modification for something that works the same muscle group, or can move on to the next muscle group, however the instructor decides to work it at the time.
Yeah, and that's I think an important piece because there's a lot of people that I've kind of interacted with who just kind of give up on whether it's physical fitness or whatever because it's like, oh, I can't do that because fill in the blank of whatever excuses that they have a back injury or their hips or their knees or something. I can't run because my knees hurt, or I can't do whatever because fill in the blank. I don't know. There's ways around that. There's other things that you can do. Yeah, sure. Fresh injury and you're still sore or whatever. Yeah, sure. Maybe take a couple days to rest and recover and get yourself back on track, right? But it's not like a lifelong sentence just
Right.
because you have a bad back or something. Like, okay, yeah, I have a bad back and neck too. Like, but I still do things. I still lift weights. I figure out ways that I can do it, and I'm not bench pressing like I was 20 again, but I'm in my 40s, so I probably shouldn't. That's probably not the smartest move to do anyway. So, but it doesn't mean that I don't do anything. Just
Yeah.
because I can't do what I used to be able to do. There's a lot of things I can't do anymore that I used to be able to do. I'm
Sure.
not as fast. I'm not as strong. There's things like that I just don't do. But it's fine. I can still do other things, and don't limit yourself just because there's certain things that might be uncomfortable. You can always find ways around that, right?
Yeah, and look, I get it. I'll be honest with you, I was one of those people. I really
Yeah.
was. I
Mhm.
think when you come from the military, right, everybody thinks, oh, you work out all the time, adapt and overcome, pain is weakness, leaving the body. And I get it. I'm totally on board with a lot of that stuff. But sometimes when we get out, we kind of fall from that, right?
Yeah.
And
Right.
you come up with excuses, like you said. There's a thousand excuses,
Yep.
that are easy to come by. They just pop in your head, right? But it's kind of committing to yourself. You have to look at what's important in your life, right?
Yeah.
Um, your wellness, it may not seem like the most important thing at the time, but I assure you, it certainly is. It's the most important thing to you. And
Hmm.
it's also the most important thing to all the people around you, because when you're not taking steps to kind of keep your wellness up, whether it's physically or mentally, and those two certainly are correlated, right?
Yep.
Um, you find yourself isolating and detached, because your physical health and wellness is connected to your mental health and wellness, and
That's
that
right.
not only affects your life and how you live it, but it also affects the loved ones that are around you. And when a veteran gets out, a lot of times they're missing that sense of community, those
Hmm.
people to pick them up, and those people to tell them, all right, it's time. So it's easy to fall out of,
Yep.
but you have to commit to yourself. And I know it's not easy for a lot of people, because everybody's busy. We all have things going on. There's work, there's family, there's kids, there's doing stuff around the house, there's all sorts of stuff, right?
Yeah.
But you really have to just make a commitment to yourself, and start the process again. It's okay. It's okay if you drop the ball, but you can pick it up at any time. You just have to commit to yourself.
That's right. And excuses are like assholes. Everyone's got one, and they all stink.
That's right. That's right. That is right.
But so you talked about a few people that have gone through your program and or are maybe currently even going through the program and participating here. Are there any significant stories of anybody who like really made a transformation? Maybe they started and they were kind of, not so sure of it, or whatever, and then they came through and now they're kind of a superstar going through some of these training programs. Anyone like that come through that comes to mind?
Yeah, so it's it's kind of it's kind of shocking when we started this. Like, we started this to help veterans of them stepping up. That's what we did. It's my community, and I want to give back to my community. But we never, I guess we never, the impact really never kind of popped in our mind that we would have such long lasting and impact. We've had people come up to us and they told us without our program, they probably wouldn't be here today. And that there's been quite a few people. And the first time I heard that, I was shocked. I just because we never really even thought of that. We were
Hmm.
just trying to help people out and just help them live healthier lives mentally and physically and bring back that camaraderie. But I guess we didn't really realize what impact that we would really have. So there's some of that. We've had some people with some fairly catastrophic knee injuries that have gone through our program, and obviously it's not just our program. They have their doctors that have been helping them out as well, but they kind of gave up in their recovery, and now they're excelling, running marathons, and taking part in things that they didn't think they were really going to take part in.
Hmm.
Uh, for a while. So we have that, and obviously we help out a lot of Vietnam veterans, and it's awesome seeing the Vietnam veterans because they're a different breed too with everything that they went through and stuff like that. So having that sense of camaraderie outside of like a VFW, again, awesome organization, but totally different from our approach. And it's awesome to see them. We have a lot of them take our aquatics therapy program and stuff like that, and they just they've come up to us and they've said we never would have done this. We never would have done yoga had we not come across your organization, and it's really helped us out a lot.
Sure.
So there's a lot of good stories, and again, it's not just us. There's a lot of organizations that are out there helping people, helping the veteran community, and that's something that we always do too. Like, we always have a community of organizations. So if somebody comes to us and they have an issue that's really outside of what we do, we can do like a handoff to another organization that focuses on something specific that we just don't. So
Yeah.
it's also that we have that those resources available to us because of our community partners and connections that we've made with other organizations too. So
I think that's a super important piece that you just mentioned there, because if a veteran, sometimes for a veteran to just reach out to an organization to take part in whatever it is that they have to offer, and it could be an organization like yours, it could be any other nonprofit, it could be the VA, it could be anything. For them to reach out and say, "Hey, I'm looking for some help with something," that's a big step for a lot of times for people.
big
And
stuff.
if they reach out and they are asking you for something that maybe you guys don't necessarily do, and or maybe they have a situation that you don't necessarily know how to work with, or whatever, and you're like, just sorry, can't help you. Immediately they're going to be like, well, that's it, nobody's going to help me. Like, that's probably the mindset that's going into their head, and they're done. They're probably not picking up the phone again or writing another email or anything to other people, because they they get discouraged when people are like, "Oh no, sorry, can't help you." Like,
Yeah,
you know,
as they should.
right, right. So, and unfortunately, that happens with a lot of these organizations, with folks who only focus on certain things. They're just like, "Oh no, sorry, can't help you," but they don't take the time to work with that person and make sure that they get the help that they need, whether or not it's from their organization. Now, I'm not saying this is every organization out there because there's
Right.
others that are good like that, the way you guys are, so I'm not totally discouraging everybody from checking out, other organizations. But, when you take the time to really understand what they need and then point them in the right direction, if you're not that right direction, you point them in the right direction, then they feel like, hey, someone actually gives a damn about me, and they actually will take time out of their day, even though I'm not necessarily participating in their program. They're gonna help me find the thing that's right for me, and I don't know. I mean, that would make me feel pretty good that someone actually cared enough about me to do something for me, even though they were not really getting anything in return. You know?
Yeah, there's a lot of great organizations out there. That's why we've partnered with so many of them, and
Right.
we have these communications back and forth, right? But we started this organization to help veterans.
Yeah.
Our focus area happens to be in health and wellness, but if a veteran comes to us and they need help and it's something that's outside of our wheelhouse, we're there to help them. We'll
Sure.
at least point them in the right direction. If we could do a person to person handshake and hand them off to an organization that focuses on what they need, then we're going to do that. That's who Warrior Strong is. We've always been that way. We will always be that way. We're committed to that.
Yeah. Right.
And there's a lot of organizations out there that are committed to that. But yeah, you're right. If an organization doesn't doesn't step up and help you out, at least point you in the right direction, then I'd have a sour taste about that as well.
Yeah. And that's unfortunately, I've heard stories about other organizations. I'm not going to call them out specifically, but other organizations that have done things like that to veterans. And yeah, I mean, I that for me would just be like, okay, well, they're a piece of crap. I don't want to deal with them. Let's let's move on to the next thing. That's I think the mindset that we should have. We don't necessarily always have that mindset, unfortunately. But I know there are probably some folks listening who are interested in Warrior Strong and finding out more about the programs, when they meet, how they can get involved, all that kind of stuff. Where can they go to find all that information?
Sure. So we're on a lot of the social media. So we're on, you know, Instagram. We're on LinkedIn. I believe we're on TikTok and some other social medias. But really, if I could point you in a direction, I would say there's an app that they can download. Okay, it's very simple. It's both on Apple and I believe the Android stores. It's if you just type in Warrior Strong, two words, and then INC at the end, it'll pop up. It'll have this logo on it in some color. That's a quick way because everybody has their phone on them at all times, basically. So you can just open the app up. You can go and you can see all the classes. You can see the classes at the different physical locations, but you can also click on virtual, and all the classes will just pop up. There's a little quick process where you just fill out a little bit of information so we can verify that you're a veteran and put you in the system, and then you sign up for a class, you just register for it, and the link gets kicked out to you via text. And you're not going to get inundated with text for every single class. You're only going to get sent links for classes that you take. Okay,
Okay.
you'll get a reminder like if you join and you take yoga classes, you're only going to get a reminder about the yoga class. You're only going to get a link to the direct class that you register. So the app's definitely the best way. Certainly, you can check us out for information on social media, or you can go to Warrior Strong Inc. And we're there. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, so all of our classes are free to military veterans, and we also take care of spouses and dependents, because if you're not taking care of the military family, then you're not taking care of the veteran. We're
Perfect.
a big firm believer in that, and it's pretty interesting. We've had veterans as well that have said because of some of the stuff that we've done, they wouldn't have never really had the opportunity to spend that time with their kids doing something. One of our events, like we've had events with some NHL teams, and we've had some hiking events, and they've brought their kids, and they said that they wouldn't really have had that opportunity before. So we've also helped parents that bond with their kids and stuff like that. But yeah, you can check us out on the apps. You can check us out on the website. That's where you'll find all the information for the classes and everything. Again, everything is totally free, and you can always look us up on social media.
Yeah, and there's some in-person things too that you guys do too. It's not all virtual, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, so we have a small studio out in Scranton. We're looking here in the next year or two to expand that studio as kind of like our home base. But then there's the virtual stuff. So we have a lot of our classes in Scranton. That's where we do a lot of our filming and stuff like that.
Sure.
So those classes are filmed there or recorded live and then streamed for anybody from anywhere really to take them. And then we have some in person classes out in Morris County, New Jersey. That's where our aquatics therapy program is run out of. But most of our classes that we offer are both live and virtual, with the exception of the aquatics therapy. And we
Okay.
also, for those two that are kind of maybe not looking to jump right into a class, we're also on YouTube, and there's some pre-recorded stuff. And if you sign up, you have access to that pre-recorded stuff. So if you just want to check it out in an environment at your own pace, you're certainly welcome to do that. But if you like it, check out our live classes. It's awesome. You get that full sense with the camaraderie in the community when you do that.
Yeah, to your point, if someone is just let's just call it window shopping, they want to see what it's all about first. Easy enough to go check it out on the pre-recorded stuff and just see what it's all about. See kind of how the classes are run. If it seems like a good fit, then yeah, heck yeah, go check out the live stuff and make some connections, make some friends, and have something to look forward to too. And you mentioned even with doing stuff with your kids, you can bring them along and have them do stuff too. And it's all fitness related, so everyone's getting better. Everyone, you're teaching kids how to take care of themselves, take care of their bodies, and showing that it's an important thing to do. And that's, I think, good value to be passed down to that next generation. So it's really awesome. And the fact that you have it mobile connected through the apps where you can take it with you anywhere you're going, even if you're traveling someplace, you still have it with you. You don't necessarily have to be at home. You certainly could be, but you don't necessarily have to be. And with you know devices these days, you can connect them to all sorts of other things. So you probably could even watch it on your television, if you have the right setup and everything, right?
Yeah, I mean, we've definitely had, the virtual thing is great.
Yeah.
We've certainly had people who are on the road for work and stuff like that. We've also had people that were on vacation that just really liked the classes and they wanted to take them. Maybe they took a breath work or a meditation class because they were at the beach with their family and their kids were running around driving them crazy and they just need a quick de-stressor at the end of the day.
Yeah.
People with work, work gets hectic and sometimes you just need a de-stressor. And then we have people that regularly sign in. Sometimes they're on their couch. Sometimes they're laying in bed getting ready to go to sleep, and they do a meditation class right at the end of the night. And
Hmm.
they turn off their camera. We do the class. They leave and they go right out. It definitely helps for people that have sleep issues, which a lot of veterans have. It just gets you melting and just ready to close those eyes, so
Yeah,
it's
that's
it's
excellent.
awesome. The virtual stuff, again, not planned, but thanks, Earl, that was a great idea.
There's been some times when I've been traveling for work, and the hotel says, "Oh yeah, we have a fitness center," and you go in there, it's like a treadmill and like a couple dumbbells or something. It's like, this is stupid. This is not a fitness center. But having something like one of the body weight exercises, or one of those types of things that you could just do in your hotel room, while you're traveling, and you don't need to have any special equipment or anything like that. You could just maybe it's push-ups or sit-ups or whatever it is that you guys are doing, but you just kind of a class that works you through it. And why I think the class is a good thing, because yeah, sure, anyone could just start doing push-ups if they want, or sit-ups, whatever. You could do that on your own, and that's not a big deal. But sometimes you are doing them and it's like, I'm kind of tired, I'm done, and you're not really pushing yourself. But when there's other people around, and you have people who are motivating you to push yourself harder and push yourself a little bit more, that might be a good thing to to get you to be able to push yourself out of that comfort zone.
Sure.
And so that's I think a great benefit of having someone there to, not necessarily be a drill sergeant screaming in your face, getting you moving, but get you going enough that you're not just sticking inside that comfort zone.
Yeah, it's all up to the individual, right? Like that certainly helps having those people around you to help motivate you. Again,
Yeah,
people helping people, picking each other up,
that's right.
Um, but at the same time, I just want to throw it out there for your viewers and stuff like that. That option's up to you. You can certainly sign into one of these virtual classes, and we have a lot of people that just turn their cameras off and they go and do their own thing. But we have some people that like to keep their cameras on too. That's okay.
Sure.
Whatever approach the individual wants to take is fine with us, and we certainly always recommend everybody do it however they want to do it. We're here for you, and then you just use our services however you see fit. If it can get you back and into health and wellness, and it can get you to focus on yourself, then it's a win-win.
Yeah.
So yeah, we like it, and I think we have a lot of people. A few years ago we were only in 2 states, and now we're in 19, 20 states. So I think a lot of people like it. And I would always say to everybody, even though you think it may not be for you, try it. I did, and I love yoga and I love breath work, and those are two things that I never thought I would say.
Yeah.
They have helped me out so much, so much. So give it a try if you like it. Keep going, and if you don't, try something
No
else.
worries. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Exactly. So, well, God, it's been, awesome hearing a little bit more about the program and the types of things that you guys do. I know when we talked to Tom a little while ago, he gave us some background and info on that, but it's nice to hear it again and hear some different stories about some of the folks who, got some benefits from the program, and the folks, who unfortunately may not have been here still if these a program like this didn't exist. And so that's super awesome, and I'm really grateful that you guys are here because we want to keep these folks around as long as we can. So thank you so much for taking the time to come on, for all the work that you guys do supporting veterans and their families. And I think that it's really amazing, and I'm glad to be able to highlight what you guys do again. So thanks a lot for coming on.
Thanks, Scott. We certainly appreciate the opportunity to get our word out, and Drive On is awesome. I've seen some of your other stuff, and again, people helping people, just trying to lift up the community. That's what it's all about.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
All right, thanks, Scott.